The following is a presentation of the Sovryn Tech podcast feed.
The man of tomorrow is here, Dr. Brian Sovryn, Savzu, the rated R radio star. But I have the great pleasure of not being alone this time around. We got a bit of a Sovryn short, though. When I'm with this guy, I don't know how short these things go, but you probably know from that good laugh. I am being joined by none other than Robin Freebeard from his very home in New Hampshire, which is the most amazing thing to be able to say in and of itself. Because Rob, you and I, man, we've been recording for years together.
Yeah.
Been friends for years. You've been in California, for most of that time, and you just recently moved to New Hampshire, and you've got this, just a fantastic apartment, really. And great locale. We don't have to
it's
get
coming
specifics,
together.
but it's coming together. Oh man. On video, when we used Hangouts or Skype or whatever the fuck we used, I'd always see like your RPG books collection and all that stuff, but it's really nothing. It's like us today in the 21st century thinking, boy, what was the Library of Alexandria looking? What did that look like? We can only imagine. Maybe we could get some like artist renditions or something like that. And I felt the same way, because then when I finally walked in to your home and I see all these books, no video can do it justice. It's remarkable.
You got to see it in person.
Yeah, you have to see it in person. I just actually, right in between us, I'm looking. We're sitting at this amazing mahogany like table here. I don't know what this is. Gaming table. Speaking of RPGs, you can flip it over, nice felt and everything. It's great. But anyway, I just look behind me here, and here's this. It looks like the finest Bibles. This looks like the Gutenberg Bible, but on the cover of it, it actually says Vampire the Masquerade. What am I looking at behind me?
That is the limited edition of the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade.
Of the core rulebook.
Right, and they only made 500 copies of these.
Yeah, you've got it encased in glass.
Right, and it's hand-bound in leather. So, an artisan, literally put these books together by hand, one copy at a time.
Only 500 in existence.
Right.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's red velvet around it. It looks like something a vampire would own, which, not making any claims about Rob, but also not denying.
Yeah. I have been known to be a creature of the night.
What noise they make. And we are here to make some noise. But anyway, it is so great because, as I was saying on Patreon earlier today, on a Patreon episode, Ellen and I are effectively homeless, and you're graciously hosting us while we're waiting to get our van, in order and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's been a fantastic time just getting to hang out with you. But yeah, we've got some stuff to record. We're going to be getting in some action. In fact, I'd like to, before Ellen and I shove off, I'd love to get another triple header not triple, but 3 heads anyway, because it's better than one, maybe. But me, you, and Ellen have done multiple live Q&As with Sovryn Tech patrons over the past, 2-3 months. And I'd love to get in one more.
Absolutely.
While we're all here together.
A great time every time.
Yeah.
So, all around.
Right. It's been a favorite for everyone that's listened, and great participation from the Sovryn Tech patrons. So maybe for June 2022, we'll get that in.
Right on.
But anyway, we've got something to discuss. We've got something to get into here that's been a subject through much of 2022 in the Sovryn Tech feed. And it really comes down to smartphones, and what smartphones are actually worthwhile. Because a funny thing is happening. Now, any the commodity is not the word I'm looking for, but anything that's just boring and part of the infrastructure, like smartphones have become.
A consumerist product.
Yeah. They're just they're useless, but then they're also so useful in the modern age. It's a weird dichotomy.
I don't know if I use the word useful, but unfortunately in our society today, somewhat necessary.
Evil. Right. Yeah. Again, they're a part of the infrastructure, but because we've gotten to this point where they're just common and people just sort of accept them, I think people have gotten bored with the duopoly in smartphones.
Right.
Like, people are tired of the iOS and Android options. And I think a lot of people really are. They want something different. Now, unfortunately, they still want it to be easy to use. You know, like, ironically, in fact, let me know what you think about this, Rob. I just thought of this. But I think today, in 2022, if Microsoft came out with Windows Phone,
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd do gangbusters. I think it'd be huge, and it would take off. You know, when it did come out, like Windows 10 Phone specifically, it did not do well. Obviously, it's no longer here. But I think if they relaunch that today, I think it'd go through the roof. What do you think?
I'll do you one better.
Yeah, sure.
I think if HP brought back WebOS and created a WebOS phone, it would do even better.
Wow. Do you have anything like any extrapolation on that, or just in general?
I just think that the WebOS platform had the most potential and was the greatest lost opportunity.
Sure.
In the history of mobile computing.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, HP had some bold days. I remember, like, in 2008, I think it was, they said, "Oh, we're going to come out with a totally new desktop OS."
Right.
And I was like, "Wait, what? You're really going to do that?" And then you find out shortly thereafter they said it's going to be based on Linux. And it's like, oh, come on, guys. Don't be so boring. I mean, I love Linux. And Linux Phone is certainly something that's here, more on its way. I think people just hear Linux and they just have a roadblock.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we all expected to a certain degree that wasn't necessarily going to take off.
Right.
Any more than Linux was going to take off as, a platform for gaming PCs or whatever. Yeah.
But it's totally just a mental block, because at the same time, everybody's using Linux. Like, everybody in one form or fashion.
Yeah. I mean, Android is Linux.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Linux is the most dominant as far as, like, install base. It's just installed everywhere.
Right.
It may not be in its general purpose form, but it's installed everywhere.
Yeah. I think if Linux is going to be successful really on any platform going forward, they've got to put another face on it.
Yes. Yeah, rebrand. Give it a new name.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you just gave out a $1 billion idea, I think,
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's already the idea that exists in the market, and it's that's what Android is.
Right.
But, Linux themselves could potentially take that and say, hey, why don't we do our own platform? We're not going to call it Android.
Yeah.
But essentially, we're going to perfect, the system we essentially created.
Yeah. Something like Ubuntu wouldn't even say, like, no, it's not Linux. This is Ubuntu, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even attach like that kind of name or anything from the past.
It's got to be something totally new.
Something totally new.
Yeah. And just use whatever Linus Torvalds is working on at the time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's
I mean, honestly,
idea.
I would keep his name as far away from him as possibly could.
Yeah. I think you're really onto something with that. I mean, after a fashion, Chrome OS is the same thing.
Right.
Like, Chrome OS has taken off. It's actually getting almost dominant, and that's Linux. As well.
Yeah.
So it kind of proves your point that, like, just take Linux branding away from it, and people jump on.
Right.
And like, don't even announce that it's Linux. Like, don't even talk about it.
Right. Exactly. I said put a new face on it.
Yeah.
Create a subsidiary.
Right.
From the Linux Foundation.
Right.
And call it something new.
Fascinating. Yeah. I'm with you on that. Well,
but I'm still hot for the WebOS. I mean, the only thing going on with WebOS these days is it's being licensed out to LG for their smart TV interface,
right?
Which looks nothing like the WebOS that you had with, like, the Palm. What was it? Was the Palm Pre?
I think it was the Pre.
Yeah, there was the Pre, and the touchpad,
right?
Which I had the most experience with, and that was just. Still to date, my favorite tablet of all time.
Yeah, just really intuitive.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, the card system was just awesome.
Yeah. Well, so I guess people seem like there is, the market has recognized that people are looking for that. They're looking for, and it comes from different, like, either, I don't think it's really new form factors that they're looking for. Foldables are certainly becoming a thing. But I think they want some kind of option, partly because it's not just that they're tired of the duopoly of Google and Apple in smartphones, but they're also tired of Google and Apple. like as companies in general. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. The problem is, in my opinion, the bulk of what the market's putting out there to answer this desire is bullshit or outright lies at that.
Yeah. I mean, it could also be that they're not just tired of the duopoly. They maybe people are finally realizing, what an intrusion on their lives these devices are, and they're just tired of the dominance that smartphones have in their life.
Yeah. I think that's really happening.
I definitely see, a reaction from, even people outside of, like Sovryn Tech circle that, they're tired of seeing people with their noses buried in their phone.
Yes.
And they're not aware of the world that's going on around them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I hear that from people, frankly, from all walks of life.
Exactly.
That they're just happy to not have to deal with their phone or whatever.
Right. I mean, it used to be unplugging meant, getting away from computer and having a weekend away from that. Now unplugging means, hey, let's leave our smartphones behind.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing how much we used to just psychotically refresh our email inboxes.
Right.
And that was what we gave a shit about. It wasn't even going to websites or anything like that. It's oh, did I get this email? I mean, oh man. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think you're right about the privacy thing, because a lot of these newer phones are focusing. They're claiming that they're privacy focused.
Right.
And I've had to do a lot of these episodes. It feels like to me anyway. I've had to do a lot of these episodes in 2022. I've even guested on other podcasts to say no, all these people selling you supposed privacy phones are full of crap. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not offering what they suggest.
Right. It's for people who feel like paying for security theater.
Security theater. There it is. Yes, that is the term du jour. Yeah, it is security theater that they're ultimately offering.
Right. And why you'd want to pay for that, I don't know. But
right. Yeah, I mean, because to me, ultimately, the idea of a privacy smartphone, that's an oxymoron. That's not possible. As soon as you put the word smart in front of it, privacy, out the door.
Yeah.
It's over.
Well, I mean, I think that's been true since we had cell phones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, it doesn't even start with smartphones.
Right.
The just the fact that you're using the cellular network is a security liability.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Certainly, security and privacy.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, we have the latest privacy phone to get announced in 2022, and again, there have been a lot. That I wanted to go over, and have you on, Rob, you've already brought in some tremendous insights, but to get your insights and also, maybe get a gauge from you on, even though I think you've kind of already said, but get a gauge from you on, how you're feeling about smartphones in 2022. So let's talk about this. I've got a link in the show notes, Stories from Android Police, and it's about a phone called the Murena 1. So Murena is a company that a lot of people probably don't recognize, but actually a lot of people have touched. They've messed around with their software. Murena is one of those companies that helps out with making custom OSs, custom UIs for a lot of Android phone manufacturers. Particularly, they've dealt with Fairphone, which a lot of people might recognize that, which I've never done an episode where I've critiqued Fairphone. Fairphone, the reason I've never critiqued them, other than I wish they'd be in the U.S., but I understand why they're not. Fairphone, I think, is actually a great and wonderful thing because they're not arguing that they're a privacy smartphone by any means. They're just arguing that their parts are ethically sourced.
Right.
And
sort of like your fair trade coffee.
Exactly. That's where the name comes from, pretty much. And I think that's a fine and dandy thing. Now, you're going to pay $1,000 for that phone, but then that's what the damn thing should cost.
Right.
If you're not hiring, kids blowing off their legs with dynamite, somewhere. So I have no problem with the Fairphone. So ultimately, I also really have no problem with Murena, at least in the abstract. But what they're coming out with, this Murena 1, which they are specifically billing as and I love that they're using this term now, because they're not even really calling it a privacy smartphone. They're saying privacy focused. And maybe that's them being a little more honest, Because, okay, you're focusing on privacy, but are you actually achieving it? Well, we'll read a little bit here. I want to get into some of the specifics on this. Now, it's not by no means is it a flagship smartphone. I'll give you the specs here. It has a 6.5-inch screen. All right, hold on. Let's stop on that for a second. Well, I'll say 1080p LCD, so it's not an OLED, whatever. 1080p, I think that's great because it's not going to drain your battery so much. But a 6.5-inch screen. Rob, do you like the phones with larger screens now? Or do you miss like the sub 5-inch phones of yore?
I've gone back and forth on that. And honestly, I think screen size is largely irrelevant, in my opinion. Okay.
Doesn't mean, but you're also a guy, you don't really use your phone a whole hell of a lot, do you?
No, but it has a fairly good sized screen on it.
Yeah. So do you mind sharing what your phone is right now?
It's a Motorola One 5G Ace.
Yeah, okay. So it's one of the later models.
Yeah.
That Motorola's put out there.
Right.
And I would call it flagship to mid-range, right?
Yeah, you'd say it was their mid-range flagship.
Yeah, I like that mid-range flagship. Okay. So screen size doesn't mean much to you. See, like I miss really, and it's not like I have small hands. I use a Pixel 6, of course people know that. But I miss really being able, two things. One, being able to use it one-handed comfortably.
Right.
And two, it like disappearing in my pocket. Like I miss that. So I do miss the days of sub 5-inch screens.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I've had both. I've had small smartphones and I've had big ones, and like I said, to me, it's a minor factor. Like other things come in larger than that. For me, I'm like I'm on a budget, so if I'm going to be paying, plus $500 for a 4 or 5-inch screen, then I'm going to be going.
Give me more for my money.
Yeah, kind of, in a way.
Sure.
I'm fine with you giving me less, but make me pay less.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly.
If it was like a $200 5-inch screen, then that seems to me to be a fair value.
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's funny because like I touch my iPod Touch, and that's a sub 5-inch screen, and I just feel like, oh, this is the perfect size, and I don't want to let it go. I mean, I hate iOS, but it just feels so right in my hand. But that's just, that's me. Anyway, I understand why companies everybody's like, wait, why is everybody making huge phones right now? Well, the simple answer is you buy the parts that are mass produced.
Right.
And right now that's what's mass produced because of Samsung and whoever else.
Right.
Their large phones are what became, a dominant force.
Yep. It's all dictated by the manufacturers.
Yeah,
they tell you what you like.
Right. It's not even like, it's so funny. It's like, oh, we'll let the market decide. You decide that you want a smaller. No, I can't decide that there's to get a smaller smartphone because it's what's made in mass and what's inexpensive enough to fucking get released and put in your hand.
Right. I mean, perfect example. It's the reason why for the longest time you couldn't get a sub 55-inch OLED TV.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. So it always kills me when people are like, well, vote with your dollar. Like, no, my dollar, like the option doesn't even exist in the system. For me to vote with my dollar. It's crazy. So anyway. Yeah, bingo. So 6.5-inch 1080p LCD display on this. 128 gigs of storage. I don't know that it has a micro SD slot. Oh, no, it does have a micro SD card slot, which is great. It has a headphone jack. You can't always count on that, but it's nice to have. 4 gig of RAM and a MediaTek Helio P60 octa-core processor. So, no, those aren't flagship specs. But I think those specs personally are fine. Like I
they're
see
fair.
nothing. Yeah,
I mean,
they're good.
Especially in a market when you're looking at mid-range phones, a lot of times they only come with 2 gigs of RAM.
Yes.
And that makes a big difference when you're talking about multitasking and running multiple apps at the same time.
Right.
Honestly, that 4 gig is coming up to be like the minimum these days.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. Like 2 gig, you feel it.
Yeah, you really do. Device.
Yeah. So this is a phone that that'll do all right. Now again, its selling point is privacy. Like that's really what they're trying to push here. Now how they go about that, I'm going to read directly from the Android Police story. Quote, the real appeal of the Marina 1 lies with its software, especially if you're a fan of Android, but not Google. With EOS, the company has replaced every aspect of the phone to remove Google's software. It's got a new browser, a new messaging app, replacements for all those workspace apps you rely on, and a custom-built music player. Murena is also working on Livia, an assistant clone that should enable voice commands in the future. It's all rolled up in a custom skin that looks, if we're being honest, just like iOS. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about this. So EOS is in line with like Lineage OS,
Right.
maybe a little more extreme than even Lineage OS. Like you're not going to put the Google Play Store on EOS. Like Google Play services just aren't. They're not going to work with it. So they have a custom app store on here. That app store has to still be accessing Google Play servers. You might not be running Google Play services, but it's got to be accessing Google Play servers because a lot of what they're offering here looks like they're apps that you could only get through Google Play. Like there's the Aurora app store. Everybody's like, oh, a lot of these privacy smartphones or anti-Google smartphones, they're like, oh yeah, you can still download all the apps you use on Android, but you're still accessing the Google Play Store even if it's through the front end of the Aurora app store. So that's bullshit. I call bullshit on this unless they're going to do somehow something more extreme. The Olivia assistant software, that's kind of interesting. You know, that they're going to do, and they need to give more details on that. They don't. But if they're trying to do like a privacy-focused Google Assistant alternative, I think that's a fine thing. What do you think about that?
I actually want to rewind just a little bit and talk about the App Store because I think that really is like an important point.
Mm-hmm.
That is what makes or breaks a phone.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yes.
For most consumers.
Yep.
So your options are essentially to come up with your own app store in which you're not going to have access to all the apps you normally would.
Spotify, whatever.
Right, yeah. Or if they are, they're going to be, somehow customized, and if they're going through Spotify to do that, they're going to be paying a premium for it, and that's going to increase the cost of the phone.
Right.
And that's not what's going on here because it's touted as a budget-friendly device.
Yes, right. We don't know the exact price, but budget-friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
Your other option is, and if anybody can freely do this, is to basically just mirror the Google Play Store.
Right.
But then you're running into potentially really hazardous, copyright violation territory.
Yeah, you're going to run into regulation problems.
Yeah, exactly.
This is an incredibly common practice in China, but then China doesn't care about regulations around the rest of the world.
Right.
So that's why they get away with it.
Right.
And, no one can do anything about it.
Right.
So you're totally right about that. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we talk about, sort of duopolies in the smartphone space, it's not even largely a hardware problem.
It's an app.
It's an app problem.
Yeah, agreed. Now some of these companies want to come out with their own apps. Morena's doing that. They have their own browser. They say they have their own messaging app. I don't know if it's end-to-end encrypted or anything like that, but they say they have their own messaging app, and they're coming out with their own assistant app.
Right.
I think you're totally right, and I think the most interesting thing in this whole story that we're talking about, I think, does come down to that assistant. But we know with Bixby and other attempts at doing on-device assistant without an insane server farm for it to access, it's effectively useless. It can't do shit.
Yeah.
So
well, not only that, with all these custom apps, they're only as good as long as the company's around.
Right. Well, that's a whole other thing. Murena has they make money because they work with other manufacturers, But yeah, is their dev team going to be around for a good long while? That's a huge question to ask.
Right.
That's the biggest problem I have with most alternative or most Linux distros. Most of them don't have a dedicated. It's like volunteers, or it's a hobby, and it's I can't.
Or even if they say they do, they can get rid of them at a moment's notice, a la Firefox.
Yeah, right. Good point. Yeah, talk about that firing, but yeah. So I'm never really confident in that either.
Right.
And that actually speaks to this is shipping with it's EOS, but EOS right now is based on Android 10. You're almost 3 versions, actually counting 12.1. You're almost 4 versions behind on Android. Now, you can say, well, that's fine, but I don't think it is. Like, there are so many security exploits that often enough can only get fixed in newer iterations of Android. I think it's incredibly important to buy hardware that has a guaranteed update cycle.
Yep.
That goes for years.
Well, that's not even guaranteed a lot of times either.
True.
Like, my phone is a perfect example. I'm still on Android 10. We were supposed to get 11.
The 5G Ace is on Android 10?
That's right.
Fuck.
Yeah, yep. And we've
Wow.
been promised Android 11 for over a year now.
Yeah.
And they still don't have it.
Yeah, Motorola's nasty about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done that. Like, the X4 was supposed to get 10, it never did. Oh, man. Yeah. See, but again, when you're on a budget, like you're saying,
Right.
you know, these are the options you have.
Right.
So I guess, like, I kind of get it. And certainly Android 10 is infinitely better to be on than Android 9, because Android 9 was a stage fright 2.0. I mean, like, there was a laundry list of exploits that only Android 10 repaired. Or plugged, I guess. But I see that, like, as a problem, because we'll talk more about the privacy, but, like, they're not even handling, like, security right. Now, privacy and security, as we always say, are two separate things. But, like, you really do need both, you know?
Right. But
go ahead.
well, like you've long said that convenience is the enemy of privacy and security.
Yeah, absolutely.
And really, like in the marketing for this phone, branding it as a budget friendly device, you know what that is a convenience. A budget friendly phone is a convenience.
One of the oldest sayings in the Western world, you know, is you get what you pay for.
That's right.
So, and this is certainly holding true, I think, with this device. Yeah, that's a great point to bring up. So, yeah, and again, I don't trust this assistant software. I just don't believe it can get to, I mean, even Siri sucks, and that's funded by Apple.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck are they going to pull this off? I don't know. Like, it's good marketing. It's something to, you know, make it interesting, but I don't know that that's ever going to, you know, like really pay dividends, as it were, for users. Now, one of the other points I want to get to, and this is the key point, that anytime a company is telling you this is a privacy-focused phone, this is the first thing that anybody should look for. What are they using for notification servers? In this case, we know exactly what they're using. They're using MicroG. MicroG, great. That replaces Google Play services and all that. Here's the problem. So while it can keep you from MicroG can keep you from having to use the Google Play Store and from having the dependent libraries for, you know, Google Play services, so that you can use some apps that look for Google Play. MicroG is still accessing, while not Google Play services, it is accessing Google mobile services. It's accessing GMS, which are the notification servers run solely by Google.
Right.
So to say it's a de-Googled phone, you're full of shit. Like, you're lying. You're wrong. And I've brought this up with so many privacy phones this year. Every time they say that, they're dead wrong. If you're using MicroG, you're still accessing Google at the end of the day. And if the entire argument is that your privacy focus is privacy because it's anti-Google, you're not actually offering an anti-Google product whatsoever.
Right. But then again, what choice do you have?
Well, that's...
I mean, the game has been in, you know, basically dominating the back end of the internet,
Right.
if you will. I mean, you look
Right.
at, you know, Amazon Web Services and things like that. I mean, that is really the game. I think this is actually the point behind, you know, the cloud becoming such an ubiquitous term, because it's meant to obfuscate, you know, who's actually in control.
Yes. Yeah. It's terrible. I'm trying to remember the gal's name. She went to Porkfest. She's written for The Verge. She's written for a bunch of different places. She has a very unique name. But she wrote a 5-part series about, like, what is it like to live without the tech giants.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I covered it on Sovryn Tech years ago.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. I can't think of her name. Anyway, she's fantastic. And she's like, okay, I got rid of Google. That was easy enough. I got rid of Apple. Yeah, no problem. Got rid of Microsoft. That was easy. Facebook, easiest of them all. But then when she got to Amazon, and not not shopping on Amazon, but getting away from AWS.
Right.
She said, now that's where the internet broke. That's where, okay, now I have problems.
Yep.
And it was so insightful because she said, this is what people don't think about. They don't realize just where Amazon, that Amazon is everywhere, whether you shop with them or not.
Right.
Like you could go to, I don't know, Etsy or something and say, yeah, I'm done with Amazon. I'm not going to deal with Amazon anymore. But shopping on Etsy, you're using AWS.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten away from Amazon at all.
But I mean, this is essentially what everything's come down to is essentially, a back end of the internet turf war.
Right.
Everybody's looking to carve up their slice of, the pie and declare their territory,
Yeah.
and there is no Switzerland.
Yeah, no, right. I love that there is no Switzerland. Even Switzerland isn't Switzerland today.
Right, yeah, so true.
Yeah, but good point. But I love that phrase. We're using, that's a Robism right there. Or Freebeardism. There is no Switzerland. That's genius. Yeah, so, I guess to bring it all in, like, people don't I hate this with these phones, this false marketing. Because you're telling people, oh, you're tired of Google? Here, this gets you away from Google.
Right.
When no, it fucking doesn't.
Right.
And we also can't, a smartphone, in a very real way, is as much just a notification device as it is anything that runs apps. I would almost argue that smartphones are ubiquitous and everybody keeps them around for notifications, not even for the app itself. Mm-hmm. They need to get the notifications. So that's why all these companies are still using micro-G. Why? Because running your own notification servers, you want to talk about a hard computer problem? That's a hard fucking computer problem.
Yep.
And there's a reason there's only 2 companies on the planet that effectively have them, which is Apple and Google. You're absolutely right that what you said earlier, that it's about who owns the apps. But even more so, or even as much as that, they're equidistant. Even as much as that is who controls the notifications.
That's right. Yeah. Who controls the servers?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's Google and Apple.
He who controls the servers controls the universe.
Yeah, we're 2 for 2 with these Freebeardisms. So people don't know that, though. They don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't realize.
And the really tragedy is that entire, that very problem breaks the very foundation's intent of the internet.
Yes, right, which is supposed to be decentralized, distributed.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah, that was, supposedly invulnerable to, nuclear attack or whatever, where, if they take down one part of the network, the entire thing doesn't fall.
Yeah.
But with this increasing centralization,
right,
that's exactly what we're creating. We're creating, essentially security liabilities, worldwide.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it annoys me because I see get shared around, even in groups and everything, that are full of my listeners. And I'm not saying anything bad about my listeners. I'm just saying they'll share YouTube videos by these guys who will do these reviews of these privacy phones, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the de-Googled phone that you want. And I can call bullshit on all of them.
Yeah.
Just on micro-G alone, to say nothing of Aurora Store and other things. And it just drives me nuts. I some of these YouTube guys who claim to be pro-privacy, I just want to slap them around a little bit,
Well, like I said, what are your choices? And I think the only choice going forward for people who are truly concerned about privacy and security is at the hardware level.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the industry is not going that way.
Yeah.
I've only seen one smartphone that did that. And it's made by, some obscure German company, and they're, building it off of a Samsung Galaxy S3 platform.
Right.
So
right.
if you want to use, a 8-year-old platform running Android 8, yeah, you can get that kind of level of hardware security.
Yeah.
But here again, you're dealing with all the liabilities of Android 8 and an 8-year-old hardware platform.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah. I mean, there are options where, there are versions of Telegram that use a persistent notification to give you notifications. Threema has solved the notification problem with their app. But I mean, but that's the thing. There are very specific apps you would have to use to continue to get notifications and all this on on modern hardware.
Right.
And hardware that's going to have some degree of security. So people
Right.
don't have a whole lot of options. I mean,
Right.
you essentially have, like, to me, the three options are, if you don't want Google or Apple, like, okay, you can use a dumb phone, but then you're only using SMS and phone calls,
Right.
pretty much. Or some of them have like
And
WhatsApp on it, but then what? You're doing Facebook servers.
And
what
those
kind
are
of
still
win is that?
vulnerable.
Right, exactly. Or you use like a Linux phone, like a Pine phone or something like that, which again, not everybody's up for that,
Right.
and I understand. Or you just don't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Like those are your options for something akin to privacy. And I
Right.
say akin. I don't even say that it is privacy.
Right. But you still got that baseband processor.
Which,
and
well,
you
that's a
still-
huge problem.
And you still got that SIM card.
Yeah.
So,
Which-
I mean, like I said, unless you address these problems at the hardware level,
Yeah.
the kind of inherent security risks that we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
that we want addressed aren't happening.
Yeah. Now, I want to bring that up quick because you mentioned this to me earlier, and I completely forgot about it. Wasn't there a smartphone that tried to solve the baseband problem?
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to earlier with the platform that was running on a Samsung Galaxy S3.
Oh, right,
which it was called Cryptophone.
Yes.
GSMX Cryptophone. And like I said, it's made by some obscure German company. They're still using, essentially, I mean, and I'm assuming that the reason why the hardware is so old is because they've probably had to do a degree of reverse engineering to integrate their hardware firewall into the baseband processor.
Yeah. So real quick, just so people get this, like baseband firmware, and the hardware the firmware itself is powering the hardware that allows you to even receive communications of any kind on a smartphone.
And it's designed to be open to
Wide open.
everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wide
It
open.
is just an open door for anything.
Right, massive security flaw, just
Yeah.
massive, and security researchers know it, but just they don't feel like there's anything they can do about it.
Right.
It'd be like replacing the roads for travel. Like, well, what do we put in its place? We don't know right now. It's not that it's not possible. Flying cars, sure, but but like we don't. We just don't know what to do, and that's the thing is that baseband is just so ubiquitous. Just like SIM cards, and eSIMs aren't any better. That yeah, like just the replacement would be so costly. No one's going to do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to live in a world where someone comes up to me and says, "Where are we going? We don't need smartphones."
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, baby. Yeah. So, for me, at the end of all this, that's just why I come to you. Essentially, for me, I'm to the point. Look, if you want to actually be serious about some kind of privacy, all right, you're going to get a Linux phone, or the best thing you can do, since privacy with the infrastructure we have, is almost impossible on a smartphone. To be clear. Computers, PCs, laptops, different story. A totally different conversation. The best thing you can do is just up that security game, as much as you can. And, either get the Samsungs or the Pixels or, maybe the Motorola's or whatever, that will have, that has the upgrade cycle.
Right.
Built in for software.
Just go into an understanding that, you're the little Dutch boy trying to stick his finger in the dike.
Right. Yeah. So, right, and the water's just coming out.
Yeah, right.
And then what can you do? So the best thing you can do is just go for that security. And if you want to go with Apple, okay, go with Apple. But don't pretend that they somehow care about privacy either.
Right.
It becomes part of security. And I'll applaud Apple. Credit where it's due. They back, the upgrade cycle for devices. They go back many years in what, my iPod Touch still gets the latest updates on iOS, and that thing's years old. So
Right.
I'll give them credit for that.
But then again, they have that, ugly policy of basically downgrading the performance of your old phone.
Yeah, with your battery.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, planned obsolescence.
Right.
That's
Yep.
another conversation as well.
Yep.
Anyway, so, this from... I already forgot the name. The Murina 1. No, this is not a privacy option at all. And while I applaud them for trying to enter the market, they don't really, other than maybe that virtual assistant, which I don't believe is ever going to really take off in any meaningful way, there's no differentiator here. And you're just far better off getting hardware that at least has access to the latest software if you want to use it. So this is another one that I can just very easily say don't buy. I mean, how do you feel about that, Rob?
Yeah, like I said, if you want to pay for your security theater, go right ahead. But
yeah,
I don't know why anybody would want to do that.
Right, but you're just role playing. Like,
Nice.
Don't make no mistake, you're just role playing. So, anyway, yeah, I'm glad you said it, Rob, because I've said this recently many times as well. Like that, my goal in life is to get to that point where I don't need a smartphone anymore.
Right.
You know, and it's just not required. And sadly, right now, it seems like the way to get to that is to just be like stupidly wealthy or something. To
Yeah,
where, you know,
unfortunately.
because that's the thing. Like you hear all these celebrities say, "Oh, I don't even have a smartphone. I haven't checked the internet." It's like, wait a minute, but you have a social media account. What's going on? Oh, because your assistants.
Right. Yeah, you have other people to do that for you.
You have people that do that for you. You're not living without a smartphone.
Yeah.
You have slaves that handle it.
Yeah.
Or you know. Anyway,
if you want an ugly, vision of the future where that kind of, thing is democratized, check out the Neil Stephenson book, The Fall.
Oh, that's like his second to latest one.
Yeah.
High recommendation.
They kind of extrapolate that to, where basically you have assistants, managing everything for you and kind of are your filter between you and the online world. Right.
Jeez. Well, so there's a recommendation, something you can actually walk away with. Go read The Fall by Neil Stephenson. Anyway, yeah. So, if you really want privacy, that's what you got to do. You just got to ditch the damn thing. Get rid of the smartphone entirely. Anything else you want to add on to this, Rob? Otherwise, I think we can wrap it up.
No, I think we kind of set it up right off the bat there.
There is no Switzerland, folks.
Yeah, no, there is no Switzerland. Sorry. Wish there was, but yeah.
It's not there. All right. We'll wrap this up. Rob, as always, man. Well, I mean, it's great to record with you, like in person. This is something we've done very, very scantly.
Yeah.
But now we're doing it very scantily, I think. We got some legs showing here. So we'll wrap this one up. Great to record with you as always, and we will see all of you on the other side.